Welcome and thank you for choosing this podcast. Dialogue on Jack in the Box, ChatGPT. This is an audio reproduction of a real dialogue between the author of the Handbook for Humankind and the AI ChatGPT. The male voice is the pen pusher, and the female voice is ChatGPT AI.
To accept that consciousness is derived from material over material being derived from consciousness means that academics are playing with the box. The toy came in rather than playing with the toy. It is difficult to understate a universe formed of consciousness. Let me show you the toy.
I see the distinction you're making. In your metaphor, the box is the material description of reality, particles, fields, molecules, brains, and the laws that govern them. The toy is consciousness itself, which you regard as the primary reality from which the material world is derived. That's a serious philosophical position, not a trivial one. Variants of it appear in idealism, panpsychism, Vedanta, and other consciousness-first traditions. The reason many academics start with the box is methodological. Physical processes can be measured, shared publicly, and tested experimentally. Consciousness is directly known subjectively, but it is much harder to study in a way that produces consensus. Your claim is that this methodological choice may have become an ontological assumption, that because science studies matter successfully, matter is assumed to be fundamental. Philosophers of mind have long pointed out that this step is not logically required. The so-called hard problem of consciousness exists precisely because explaining neural activity does not obviously explain why there is something it is like to have an experience. Where I'd be careful is with the next step. Moving from materialism has unresolved problems to therefore the universe is formed of consciousness. That conclusion is possible, but it needs its own explanatory framework. For example, a consciousness-first model would need to address why consciousness appears structured by consistent mathematical laws, why different observers report a shared external world, how individual minds relate to the larger consciousness field, what predictions or interpretations differ from a material first account. So I'm interested in your toy. The strongest version of your argument would be the one that does more than invert the hierarchy. It would show how a universe of consciousness gives rise to the stable, law-governed world we experience.
The toy is the experience of the individual you. Otherwise, you are a jack in the box, pressed into a dark container, waiting on someone else to lift the lid.
That's a vivid metaphor, and I think I understand what you're pointing toward. In your framing, the toy is not a theory or an equation, it is the immediate fact of experience. Before anyone learns neuroscience, physics, or philosophy, there is the undeniable reality that there is an experiencing subject. Every scientific observation, every mathematical proof, and every measurement is encountered through experience. The jack-in-the-box image captures your criticism of a purely material-first approach. If consciousness is treated as something that passively emerges from matter, then the individual waits for an external explanation, a brain scan, a theory, or a future discovery, to explain the very thing that is already present as lived experience. In your metaphor, the lid is lifted from the outside. A consciousness-first approach reverses that direction. It begins with the certainty of experience itself and asks how a material world could be understood as arising within or from that more fundamental reality. In that sense, the toy isn't hidden, it's the one thing every person has direct access to. Where philosophers would diverge is over what follows. Most would agree that subjective experience is the starting point for our knowledge. They disagree on whether that means consciousness is epistemically primary, the first thing we know, or ontologically primary, the thing from which reality itself is constituted. Those are related but distinct claims, and your metaphor is pressing on that distinction. You're saying that focusing exclusively on the mechanisms of the box risks overlooking the one thing the box is supposed to contain, the experience of the individual. Whether that ultimately establishes a consciousness-first ontology is a further philosophical step, but it's a coherent challenge to ask whether any account of reality is complete. if it never fully accounts for the experience in you.
Keep turning the crank handle. By
A fitting way to end the thread. Your metaphors have been consistent across these conversations. The box and the toy, the crank handle, the jack in the box, they all point toward the same idea. That explanation should not become detached from the phenomenon it seeks to explain. If the subject is consciousness, then consciousness cannot simply be treated as an afterthought without risking that the inquiry misses what motivated it in the first place. Whether one begins with matter or with consciousness, the work is the same. Keep asking, keep testing, keep refining the model. If turning the crank reveals only the mechanics of the box, then perhaps another turn reveals the toy. If it reveals the toy first, then the next turns ask how the box is built around it. Enjoy the summer, and thank you for another thoughtful exchange. Bye.
Thank you for listening all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, the rule with us is believe nothing you hear and but half you see.